First impressions of camp. I'm going to use a weird word to describe camp very briefly. It's just been 2 practices, and we saw the end of the tour of duty. But this struck me all 3 times. Maturity. Maturity is the word that I would use. They have a ton of it. They've got a lot of leaders on this team. A lot of guys that other players, the newer players, some of the transfers, and the younger guys, as I'm referencing, can look up to and kind of be shown and guided towards the light. They've got a lot of guys on both sides of the ball. They're willing leaders. They walk it like they talk it. They're calm. They're measured at the right times. They're focused and intense. It's just every drill you watch with these juniors and senior leaders, you really see the path that they're creating for the younger players and the newer players that transferred in. And it's impressive. It's the first time in a long time that I could say I witnessed that, see it in a way in which it's tangible. You know, you watch these things play out, these drills, and these moments in practice when things get difficult. And they've got a lot of guys leading the way. So, we always talk about athleticism, and we always talk about depth and size and all the things that you need to have, but it doesn't hurt, and you can see it. It's tangible. It's real.
The thing to me that makes me really smile, because yesterday was my first day out there, and the setup is a little bit different, the logistics of how we get in and get out, but just watching wave after wave of talent on both lines of scrimmage. I know you've talked about it a lot on headlines this week and in general after the tour of duty. We've discussed it, especially as it pertains to the offensive line. But the defensive line versatility that I saw yesterday is just incredible. It's not just a talking point for Adam Fuller to say that they could have a 3 defensive tackle look against a certain opponent. You look at what they have on the defensive interior, and they can play it any way you want to line it up on the other side. If you want to have a bunch of guys that will neutralize the line of scrimmage and just be large bodies, they've got that. If you want a more nimble bunch of guys on the field on a third and obvious or against a more pass-heavy team, they can do that as well. They're building that up at defensive end. I don't think they have enough answers there quite yet. But defensive tackles versatility is just off the charts good. And it's going to foster a really compelling battle between the offensive line, the defensive line, starting with the pads coming on tomorrow. I can't wait to watch it. It is night and day different to 2 years ago. It on the offensive line is night and day different from last year.
Yeah, it's to the point where they have one segment group that they really got to get focused on, and that's the linebackers. I mean, everything else feels pretty shored up, and you feel good about the tight end room now. You felt terrible about it a year ago. 2 years ago, you just threw your hands to the sky and thought, well, we're screwed.
Wide receiver.
Yeah, well, receiver was an embarrassment. Florida State should never look like that at wide receiver. It's Florida State, for Christ's sakes. That just could never happen. But, they flipped that room too. It can get better. They still don't have that separation guy. They still don't have the guy that changes the game, that changes the scoreboard in one play at wide receiver. I don't think. They've got some good players, and they've got guys that are going to help you win football games, and they're a plus group for sure. But they don't have that one guy where you're like, oh, man, this guy's a problem. Like a lot of times when you watch national championship level teams, you see – remember that LSU team? I mean, their receivers were absurd. And you're like just looking around going, damn it, man. This is a problem. You think you got a guy shut down, and that bastard's running a 4-3. And so we don't have that yet. They can get that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, and then I think the secondary is going to be fun to watch, but they're loaded on the offensive and defensive line. They've got 2 good starters minimum at the defensive end spot. I think they could use another guy to emerge. We'll see if that happens. They're loaded at running back. I mean, absolutely loaded at running back with plus talent. They may have something really special in Trey Benson. If he's going to start the year the way he ended the year, he may have a special season here that we'll be talking about many years from now, and we'll group him in with some of our favorite running backs that have come through here. So, yeah, I'm really excited to watch what they become, and that's a lot of what this exercise is in the spring. Yesterday was a big-time teaching day. They did a lot of instruction. We were told by Alex Atkins that's what spring football is for, that we're going to teach. You're going to get back to the fundamentals. You're going to learn the playbook. You're going to do it the way we want you to do it, technique-wise. And then you got to get back to that. And a lot of the players have said that. The veteran players have talked about the paying attention to details, rounding into form. That usually only comes up, not just for spring, Tom, but that normally only comes up when you have a veteran-laden group who is really sure of all the other stuff. Right now, we're getting into trying to pursue perfection as opposed to just getting better. Now we're pursuing perfection. Now, now it's, on this show, we use a lot of golf analogies. Yeah, I'm a scratch golfer, but I want to shoot routinely in the 60s. That kind of mentality, those guys. That's not me, by the way. I do not. But a professional golfer does, right? It's nothing for them to go out and shoot 72 on a par 72. They wouldn't even be happy with it. But, that's a really exciting place to be. When your bad day is right around, par. So I think this team now is at a place where that analogy holds. I mean, if they just play okay in the vast majority of these games on the schedule, they're going to win them. They're going to win them. They have to play great a couple of times.
Yeah. You feel the insurance policies in these segment groups. That's what depth does. There's this constant worry when you're walking around the practice fields, and they held some guys out for fear of, if we lose this guy, like why is it worth it for him to work extra on a Tuesday, because we need him on Saturdays. And they worked that way with a couple of players because they had to. It was smart. Now you don't necessarily have to do that. It's not that you want to put players in harm's way, but you don't have to fear the monster around the corner anymore, because you are the monster. Florida State is the monster, and that's where we're approaching. And just a couple of little details that I saw yesterday that I was really pleased with. We were standing next to each other at the beginning of the workouts with the defensive line, and watching Braden Fisk's footwork is really impressive.
That's a big boy. I'm glad he's able to do more than I thought he was going to do, Tom. He's out there working pretty hard. He can't do all the contact stuff, but he's loaded up and ready to go. Yeah.
The size you can see on a photo, or the size you can see on Warchant TV when you look at the practice footage. And that's apparent, and it's impressive. And when you combine it with Darrell Jackson and Fabian Love and some of the other guys that Florida State has, it's just, wow. This is wave after wave of player. But the agility and the footwork and the speed, they were doing some, light workout drills where it's more about your agility, and it shows off whether or not you can create angles and pursuit and all these kinds of things. And you never know. A guy from Western Michigan, maybe he's not there to be any good at that. He's just there to plug a gap, and that's his role. It looks like Braden Fisk might be somebody who could pursue a play to the edge and go make a play on the football, which is all the more beneficial when you have 2 or 3 guys like that are going to line up basically over the ball and look the size of an NFL football player.